before they really figure out who the Lord is with. I'm about to burn Babylon with these bars I spit. Niggas swearing they won't beef, well let's start some shit. I roll with warriors with swords and sticks, so keep stepping. Without a mind shit, this brotherhood is a weapon. This nation we protected, head for Armageddon. Told them niggas no sweat, but these other niggas is sweating. Nigga can't take the heat, nigga get out the kitchen. Ain't nothing these niggas saying you can find in the scriptures. They still in our breakdowns and trying to convert a gripper, trying to do the Lord's work, but he fell in love with a stripper. We can't afford to be playing around with the Lord. It's like our faith and baptism on one accord. If you ain't a hot nigga, you might as well hit the morgue. My niggas gon' stand firm while you niggas fall on your sword. I'm too hot. My grandma keep on telling me I need to cool out. Quit to pull the scriptures out, pull the two locks. It's the home of the truth, my nigga, and you not hot.
H-O-T-T, what that mean? Gotta spell it out. Home of the priest, got the truth. Without a doubt, niggas getting with it, need to breathe. Cause they chasing clout. What the priest is bringing out so heavy. Go and break it down, we in your town. Boots is on the ground all year round. When the summer, spring, and fall, we prophesying to the clouds. So cry loud. I say S.T.LOUIS at home. Cause life is all about war. Don't make me go blasting chrome. And they go to each his own. Nah, to each his own. We taking over the world, bringing the prophets home. And I dare any of you fake niggas to stand in my way. You niggas is gay. You wearing purple panties. You great. Wearing your fringes on socks on the block. Talking to cops. Trying to make it arrest. Think you on West. We ain't calling you out. That's why no affiliation. We don't fuck with you out. And you know this, man. And if it ain't the ISUPK, then it's bogus, man. Your Honda had to remind us what the code is, man. And now we hot niggas, but we still the coldest, man. Because we
ain't a hot boy, then what do you call that? And if I ain't a hot boy, then what do you call that?
We set a blaze to the street and we prophesy to the wind. Be amazed with deceit, false prophets feeding our king. We set a fire to them lies in hopes they open their eyes. Most niggas will see the truth, and niggas waiting on the blind. They peeking out to see the real priest who change their lives. Commander General, your hunter, the sun inside every teeth. The niggas then drop his swords, knock your deed like preachers. Looking for another way round and they got no discipline. Take it worse than the warriors in Southeast Michigan. We aware that you been listening, visiting online. You ain't my bone on my bone, cause you ain't got no spine. You weak in the mind, your vision is so filled with your pride. And you can keep it cause ain't no cowards gonna hold our line. You out here live by individuals, practicing wicked rituals. It ain't a high boy cause you falling what these bitches do.
Straight out of one West, I'm too hot. My grandma keep on telling me I need to cool out. Quit to pull the scriptures out, pull the two locks. It's the home of the truth, my nigga, and you not hot, 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 hot. If I ain't a hot boy, then what do you call that? Hot, 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 hot. And if I ain't a hot boy, then what do you call that?
For the rapper, busy man, shit, nigga. They take their head off, nigga.
When Eve didn't have them, I just pray my love don't lie to me. Swing the eye like stabs and I can't let no hope to lie to me. I don't feel these rappers, all they lies is hypocrisy. Ain't no competition, ain't no rivalry. Niggas think I'm playing, I don't hear one word they saying, this shit light work. If Muhammad one of us, he might lose his life first. Circle up and stay loose. Another cop can stretch the nigga. He ain't demon, it's an exorcism. Watch I bless the nigga. You took that open blood, then you know I'm gon' get active with you. Fuck the opposition, I see vision. Let me paint the picture. Rappers plan they spin, I ain't listening. Is it effective? If revenge was a woman, now I stole that bitch like Jenkins. Wild war, we gon' run the summer. It's gon' be historical. All they making plays, made them niggas call the audible. As who run this shit, but that question is rhetorical. Bitch, I'm the one, me cookies with the oil. I'ma get them crackers, hell, should've never kidnapped my family. I can't do better. Bet I be the last nigga standing. Do a life sentence for my niggas, pray you understand it. I might put a switch on this Glock and call it young gang. How you real trigger on them dots? You a bird feeder, claiming he a demon. What's a demon to a cold nigga? When he say something, I ain't hear him. This shit life work. Oh, who got this gun? It's about who gon' up that fight first. I turn a bad situation to a game change. 3 soldiers from the dead, just raised up the chain frame. Shots, I'ma look like Aaron Jones when I run it. Never bite the hand and speak, you will never get that hand back. Bitch about 10%, I don't wanna hear none of that. He drop a sword, fuck him, just make sure you get that cover back. Look around, he ain't with, probably cause he never was. Now my chin like you with your angles for your brothers. Everybody won't be Richard Porter, God kill him like Alpo. Play if he won't, he's laying in the trunk like Lee Malvo. A certified woman nice ass nigga, I am not a toy. Hey, out with that hollow stuff. Yeah, this the river court. Feel like Gullah Jack when I'm in Fayetteville, you feel your boy. Still up on my brain, still I think that's all that I do. The way I get that boy lost, they gon' start to call it Bell Run. Fuck his gang, pop out on them demons like I'm Hellboy.
Alright, Shalom Israel. We're the ISUPK, start out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, out of Commander General Yohana. Since 1969, we've been teaching so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans the truth of the Bible. Right? We're located here, 5261 Delmar Boulevard, Suite 8, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Right here on the corner of Delmar and Union. Right? We have classes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. All right, and Sabbath service every Saturday, of course, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. All right, every Sunday, we got Sharpen the Sword Radio from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. All right, Captain DeGauga Bar takes on, you know what I mean, any questions, any challenges, you know what I'm saying, any dispute, right? We you know, Commander Yohana, you know, he had, you know, different captains, different generals, you know what I mean, go out there just to see if, you know what I mean, if somebody can actually come up against the UPK and actually have a chance. Because the problem is, you know, most people find out, they think they know something. Right, then they come up against the men of the Lord, and they realize they didn't know anything, right? Their knowledge was based on nothing, right? And they find out that the UPK is the only place where the truth is, right? So if you have any questions about classes, right, or the radio show, the phone number you want to call is area code 314-696-8288. Again, that's 314-696-8288. Questions? Yeah, I mean, if you got any questions about the topic of class tonight, go ahead and put them in the comment section. Right, we about to hop into the topic, right? And tonight, the topic for the class, right? We're going over a community, right? A community. All right. So-called blacks, I'm be honest, so-called blacks mostly, right? Hispanics and Native Americans had the same problem, but it is more so prevalent in what's the so-called black community, right? And what we notice and see about a lot of these curses, right? They affect one tribe more than they affect another tribe, right? And there's always a reason for that, right? Everyone's heard of the phrase, cut off the head and the body will follow, right? And we know that Judah is the head tribe of the nation of Israel, right? So if you can cut certain things off from Judah, right, that trickles down and affects the rest of the nation of Israel, right? And of course, there were attempts and you do find this as well in our so-called Native American and so-called Hispanic brothers and sisters, but it's prevalent in the tribe of Judah, right, where we have a lack of community, right? We don't even honestly understand and or know what a community is, right? So that's where we're gonna start, right? This is from Merriam-Webster.com, right? It's for community, right? First definition: a unified body of individuals, such as A, the people with the common interest living in a particular area, B, a group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together within a larger society, C, a body of persons of common and especially professional interests scattered through a larger society, and D, a body of persons or nations having common history or common social, economic, and political interests, right? That is what a community is, right? Now, a community, right, encompasses a lot of aspects of life, right? And this is something we as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans need to learn, because we have not. Our biggest trip up is that we don't have a community, right? And what I mean by that is, as I just read out of the definition, right? I'm gonna go back to that part again real quick, where it says a unified body of individuals. Right? So to be a community in the first place, to even call yourself a community, you have to be unified, right? You have to be together, and there is no unity without a common standard. All right, so one of the things we as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans try to do is, come up with and define our own personal standards and our own personal moral code based off of what we believe and how we think, right? But that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? That's not the way it's supposed to go. All right, let's hop into these scriptures real quick. All right. And we're starting out tonight, tonight's class in the book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, starting at the 12th verse. Right? Because there has to be a standard that is adhered to by everyone in the group for it to even be a community. Right? There are certain requirements to even be considered a community, one of which is being a unified body. Right? So let's see what the standard is. All right, now this is the standard for every so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American. All right, this is the basis, this is the foundation, and this is the beginning of our community. Right? The book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, and the 12th verse. And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, and to serve him. And to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Verse 13. To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good. Now, this is the standard that is set before, every Black, Hispanic, and Native American, right? This is the foundation of our community, right? That we serve the Most High God, that we fear the Most High God, that we walk in the ways of the Most High God. This is the beginning of our unification as a people, because there is no other way we can be unified, right? We cannot be unified with Christians and Muslims and Buddhists and atheists and Hindus. We cannot be unified, with our people having different understandings or different beliefs, or another way to put it is different standards, right? That is the beginning of the community, is to have that standard. Right? Something that is understood, that is not up for debate and cannot be violated. Right? These are the things that must be for a community. Right? We see these things happening in all of our oppressors' communities. Right? They may disagree on certain things, but there are standards that they live by that we just simply do not. All right? I'll give you an example. All right. How many times have we seen a so-called white mass murderer, right, go into a place to kill our people, and when they see one of their own, they apologize. They quickly move the gun and get their finger off the trigger. And then when the police arrive, instead of mowing them down the exact same way they would do any so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American, they take them in unharmed. Because there is a certain standard, a certain way that they expect to be treated by their own people, and they receive that treatment. No matter what they do, no matter what they've done, they still receive that same treatment that you will never get from trying to be with or join to them. That is because they understand a community, and we do not, as a people. Right? Where is it? research article, right? Because our people who are in the world, right? This is not, and you know that's the most beautiful thing about the truth, right? The facts that we bring up and we bring out in the truth can be independently verified through secular sources when you do the research. Right now, of course, we understand, you know, there's biased research everywhere. We get that. However, when you look up our references and the articles that we pulled and the sources that we pull, all the information has been sourced, right? All of the slide. Yeah. All right. All of the references have been sourced, right? The articles have been verified, and when we bring up information, right, especially from a scholastic standpoint, right, almost every work is peer reviewed. These are not personal opinions, these are actual facts, right? Now, let me get to this article, right, real quick. Talking about us being in all these different religions and all these different quote unquote ways of life, right? Being LGBT, Q, I, P, L, A, F, G, whatever they call themselves, whatever new letter they want to add on, you being in that, having those, having that alternative lifestyle, right? To where you don't have to, where you believe you don't have to subject yourself to the same standards as people around you, right? Where you marry outside of your nation because you believe that you don't have to be unified with your people. And again, this is a condition that is suffered by the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and mainly because, you know, the Most High God gave us the law, statutes, commandments, right? And without this community that He gave us, right, we die, right? So let's go ahead and let me read this article real quick. All right. Let's see. I'm just reading the synopsis real quick. Right. This article explores William Julius Wilson's contentions about community cultural traits by examining racial differences in middle-class neighborhoods' levels of social cohesion. Right. All right. So William Julius Wilson, right? He is a Harvard professor, right? And he specializes at Harvard, you know, on urban sociology, race, and class issues, right? And he's also a published author, right? And the source for this specific article, right, is from let's see, scholarworks.wmich.edu. This is from the this article is from the Western Michigan University's database, right? So again, these are scholastic opinions written by those who have studied the factual numbers of how this works out, of how these things work out, because they spend entire 20, 30, 40-year careers simply gathering data on these issues, right? So let's see what it says. Let's see what it says further in the synopsis, right? Specifically, we explore the perceived difficulty of these actions as opposed to the general pessimism about their outcomes as a potential explanation for low levels of instrumental collective action in black middle class neighborhoods. So what that's talking about is they are taking into the account, right, that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans know we not about to get a fair shake, right? Know that we can go in there and put in twice the work and maybe get half of what our counterparts who are our oppressor, what they get, right? So this is ruling all of that out, right? Because we all know that these people, that this is a concept that we understand as a people, right? So even ruling out our predilection to leaning on that as a reason, right? So let's keep reading. Our results indicate that regardless of other neighborhood factors, majority black neighborhoods have low levels of social cohesion. What does that mean, right? In the neighborhoods that we are in, have low social cohesion. What does that mean? That community is not a community. They are not cohesive. They do not fit together. They do not go together because we are not socially involved in our own neighborhoods. And I'm going to start using the word neighborhoods and gathering places, because what we have is not a community, right? Let me keep reading. We also found that this racial disparity is statistically explained by shared perceptions about the amount of effort required to engage in group action in different neighborhoods. These findings emphasize that residents in a majority black area and the well-informed perceptions accompanying it affect the lived experience of neighbors, even when they are middle class. So what is that saying? That is saying that we are so divided, right? And when it's saying that we're middle class, what they're saying is, even when we're not concerned about our neighbor who looks like us being in a situation, in a condition where they are desperate enough to believe that stealing from us is the only way they can provide for their own home, even when that is not a concern, we still do not come together, even in the places where we live. And we are the majority in those places. Right? Let me keep reading. Racial differentials in urban neighborhood environments represent a historically well-studied phenomenon. Right? This is unnormal. This is not a thing that happens with other nations. That is why it's a phenomenon. Right? Everything that happens isn't a phenomenon. The things that are outliers, the things that are abnormal, are the things that are phenomenal. Right? I think that's pretty much all I needed in that article. Right? Because we come up and we are brought up in communities where it's like we're brought up in neighborhoods and in living arrangements where a community is looked down upon in the black neighborhoods, right? Now, there was a time where we did not look down on our communities as we do now, right? There was a time before our communities were destroyed and reduced to the state that we have now, to where we simply have living arrangements, right? We have inhabited clusters, right? These are not communities, right? And in a community, right, we teach our people, right, how to, when you grow up in a community, right, you learn how to function in that community, right? We that's one of the reasons why so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right, take so much pride in their neighborhoods, because they don't know who they are, and the only thing they can identify themselves by is the way they were raised, the where they were raised, the people who raised them. That is one of the largest hang-ups for our people coming into the truth in the first place, right? Because the first thing that you have to do in the truth, right, whether you believe it was malicious or not, you have to admit your mama raised you wrong. And that's not something we do in our community, right? We don't correct our faults. We don't correct our mistakes, and we allow them to keep going. Why? Because we have no unified standard, right? We were raised to believe that basically we make up our own law, our own way. We do what we want to do, when we want to do it, and how we want to do it. And there's no one that can tell us any different. All right? But that's because, again, you need to admit something to yourself. And you have to learn to one day forgive her for it, but your mother raised you wrong, and I'll prove it, right? The fact that you went out there and became a whore is because your mother raised you wrong. The fact that you went out there and became a drug dealer is because your mother raised you wrong. The fact that you became a whoremonger is because your mother raised you wrong. And I will prove it with the scriptures. We're going to go to the book of Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, right? And we're going to start, and we're going to go to the 6th verse, right? Because this is going to show you that the first thing you have to admit is your mother raised you wrong. You were brought up the wrong way. Everybody who was involved in and I say your mother because in the so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American community, right? Talking about an auntie, that'll fly. Talking about your daddy, that'll fly. Talking about somebody's mama, that don't fly. And we should not venerate our parents in that way, because they were raised up in the world just like we were raised up in the world. So we need to understand that they did the best they could, but it was wrong. Every bit of it was wrong, right? So we go into the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, so-called Christians of the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American community. They don't, we know that scripture from early childhood. Right? We know that. We've been taught that. But we never actually thought, well, why is it all these crackheads in the church? Why is it all these homosexuals in the church? Why is all these lesbians in the church? Why are all these brothers getting married to these foreign women? Why are all these sisters getting married to these foreign men? Why are all of these things happening in the church? Because what happened was we were not trained up in the way that we should go. We were trained up in the ways of another people. Right? We were not trained up by the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. Right? We were raised and trained up in the standards of another nation of people. And our people to this day continue to suffer for it. Right? Let me get to this next article real quick. This one I want to. Alright, I'm gonna just read a little bit out of here. Right, this is from the one moment. Trying to get all this Alright, so this article is from the Brookings Institute, right? Anybody don't know about the Brookings Institute? Brookings Institute is it's old. It's let me check. It's a very old, well-respected, you know what I'm saying, what they call think tank, right? And in these situations, right, this isn't the Brookings Institute isn't it's a socio-political think tank, right? So what they do is they study, they do projects dealing with sociology, right, and dealing with politics, but not necessarily in the way of not really influencing future politics, but more so researching and studying the history and the track of politics, right? And let me see here. Alright, let me see. Okay. Brookings Institution is 106 years old, and I'll do it this way. An academic analysis of congressional records from 1993 to 2002 found Brookings was cited by conservative politicians almost as often as by liberal politicians, earning the score 53 on a scale of 1 to 100 100 representing the most liberal score, right? So this is a straight down the middle, right? Even by Edomite standards, this is a straight down the middle, socio-political organization who just looks at the numbers, compiles them, puts everything together, gets the right scholars in place, and they check and make sure all the facts are together, right? Which is why even with politics, they quoted by one side just as much as they quoted by the other side, because all of their stuff end up pretty much checking out in the wash, right? So let's look and see from this article they got called seven findings that illustrate racial disparities in education. Because see, what happens is we turn our children over to another nation of people, right? And trust them to raise up our children in the ways that they should go. When we take our kids to the Christian church, we're turning our children over to another nation of people, right? So they can train them up in the ways that they should go, right? When we take our children to that Christian church, they're not learning the truth of the Bible. They're not learning the truth of what the Most High God says, right? They're learning what their oppressor wants them to know, right? When they go to the public school systems in every one of our cities, guess what? It's the exact same thing, right? They give you one of the shortest months of the year and throw the same exact people in front of our kids every single year, right? And why is that? Because there's a set script. There's a certain people that our oppressor wants us to learn about, wants us to study. They don't want us to study those in our nation of people who rose up against them. They don't want us to study that. They don't want us to study, about our people that wanted us to stay separate and to separate from them. They don't want that, right? So what they do is they teach your children what you they teach your children what will hurt you and benefit them, right? Let's read this article a little bit, right? All right. This section is titled "Misbehavior in School Can Pay Off for White but Not Black Students." Right? On the chalkboard, Nicholas Papageorge summarizes his research that finds some non-cognitive skills that manifest as childhood behavior in classrooms, such as aggression, are also predictive of higher earnings in later life. He finds, however, that this benefit is limited to children who do not come from low-income families, and primarily, evidence shows that the same level of externalizing behaviors African American children face higher earnings penalties than white children, right? What is this article saying, right? The article is saying that studies show that when a so-called black man does the same thing his so-called white counterparts do, he is penalized for that behavior, while the oppressor is rewarded for that behavior. This article, these studies by these institutions, it is telling you cannot be a part of their community. You cannot live by the same standards that they live by. You cannot live by the same guidelines that they live by, right? And when we raise our children in this educational system, well, they want to emulate those who are succeeding. But the exact same things that they do to succeed are a detriment to our people, right? Let's see if we can get a little bit more, right? There we go. White and Asian students are more likely to be exposed to advanced classes. This does not mean that they are more likely to get into advanced classes. They're more likely to be exposed to them. See that is the greatest and the most amazing hidden secret on this planet, right? Our children, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, are dumbed down by the educational system that we've been subject to since we've been here. Right? The simple fact that they are more exposed to it. What does that boil down to, right? In the so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American neighborhoods, there are children who have genius level intelligence, but they will never receive the education to foster that intelligence. I want you to sit down and think about what that actually means. Our oppressor is so wicked and so disgusting. He would rather his own people die than for you, so-called black man, Hispanic man, Native American man, Native American woman, black Hispanic woman, and children. He would rather his people die than for you to even come close to understanding how intelligent and wise you are. Facts are facts, right? Without any education, traditional education, our people designed and built this nation, and almost every single modern day comfort if those same people were exposed to a greater level of education when they were children, this world would not look the same. If our people had the opportunity, that's what this means. We don't even have the same opportunity to try to excel and exceed these expectations, which is going to go into the next point I'm going to pull up. All right. Let me see if I want to read that section. I might want to just go ahead for time's sake and hop straight up to the next section on here. All right. Alright, I'll read a little bit of this. The practice of tracking or offering qualified students the opportunity to take advanced level courses apart from their fellow students is more prevalent in suburban middle class communities and in schools serving white and Asian students, and less prevalent in urban schools and schools serving predominantly black, Hispanic, or quote disadvantaged populations. Right? Now, what is that saying? All right, because you live in the ghetto, you live in the barrio, you live on the reservation, you don't get this opportunity. But if you live in a trailer park, right, and you're a welfare queen, right, and you don't do anything but sit on your butt and collect checks all day, and you move to specific cities and specific areas because you knew food stamps were higher in that area, so you would get more just from living there. Your child gets that opportunity to get himself and his family, herself and her family out of that situation. Now, if you live in the wrong zip code, if it's a little too dark in your area, apparently they just don't even show up with the classes. Now, these are not talking about districts. These are talking about schools. So if you live in a city, right, and there's a predominantly white or Asian, according to this article, right, and another student lives in the same city, but their school is predominantly black and or Hispanic, they won't even know about those advanced classes, let alone have a chance to test for it. Now, if you live in that in that district, in that zone where that school is predominantly white and Asian, oh yeah, you get the test. You get the test. You know about the test. You get prepared for the test. Some of them get tutors for the test, right? But that is because we have allowed another nation to educate our children, right? Because our leaders gave us over. Right? They abandoned our community for movie tickets. Right? They abandoned our community for benefits that they would never receive, nor should they have ever even wanted. You mean to tell me that it was worth having our people beaten and eaten by animals just so you could get a movie a couple weeks early? I remember that interview when Martin Luther King was talking, and they were talking about, yeah, well, we got black theaters, but the movies come out a couple weeks to a couple months later. It's black theaters. But then wait, right? It is because our leaders gave us over. It's because we, as a people group, do not have a community because we have forgotten what a community is. All right. We did not willingly forget what a community is, but we have forgotten. Our oppressor beat it out of us. Your community is a part of your culture, right? And that's because community and culture and all of these things that make up a person, it originates in the same place, and that is your family. And that's your blood, biological, however you want to call it. That's your relatives. That's your kinfolk, right? As it was said, you know what I mean, between Laban and Jacob, you know, surely you are my bone and my flesh. You my family. Yeah, right, you my family. That's all he was saying. Right? And what we need to do, and what we need to understand, and what we need to learn is how to even get back there. Right? First thing we need to do is get rid of these leaders who have been a terror in our community, right? These Al Sharpton, Jesse Jacksons, and now coming up, what's the name of Benjamin Crump? Right? These are not the leaders who will save our people from our situation, right? We go into the book of Isaiah in the 56th chapter, and we start at the 10th verse. All right, the book of Isaiah, chapter 56, verse 10, right? It reads, His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark. Sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Verse 11, yea, they are greedy dogs, which can never have enough. And they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, every one for his gain from his porter. Let's go ahead and break this down and get a greater understanding of how our community ended up in the way that it did. Right? It starts off by saying his watchmen are blind. See, the people who have led us as a nation, the individuals who have led us as a nation, have led us into this destruction. Martin Luther King is the blame for the ghetto. I'll repeat that one more time. Martin Luther King is to blame for the ghetto. Martin Luther King and his movement created a state to where our people would be disjointed from their own people, striving to connect with the oppressors. Right? It says they are all dumb dogs to be dumb, right, in this situation. This is an old term, right? It's not used a lot, but yeah, it's lucky. Let me hop back. Let me hop back into the lesson real quick. Right. Right. They cannot bark. Right. That's lucky. I mean, it's like I thought it was. So, the old term, right, being deaf and dumb, right? Deaf, can't hear, dumb, don't speak, right? Right, they're all dumb. They don't say anything, right? Martin Luther King never said anything. It's like he said one thing. I fear I've led my people, I've integrated my people into a burning building. That's the one thing Martin Luther King ever said. Other than that, he was dumb, right? Jesse Jackson, dumb. Al Sharpton, dumb. And what I mean by dumb is, and not saying anything is, these are the leaders of our people. And they have not said one thing that will protect us from the enemies outside of us who want to do us harm. Therefore, they are dumb because they cannot speak. And as it goes on to say, they cannot bark. Right? They can't give that warning because they're all dumb. Right? Another term I've also heard used for dumb in this aspect is mute. Right? So deaf and mute, or in an older term, deaf and dumb. Right? And that is the perfect description of the so-called leaders of the so-called black community. Right? Because these are not leaders. Right? These are people who are, you know what? Let's just go right back to the scripture. Right? Because it's going to explain it, and I don't even know why I left. We're going to go back to 11. Right? Again, that's Isaiah 56, verse 11. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough. See, they have been seduced by our oppressor and have taken on the ways of our oppressor. Right? And our oppressor is can best be described as a parasite. Right? And what I mean by that is they latch on and attach and suck the life out of anything that they can get their hands on. Right? They cannot pull in enough resources. They cannot take enough. If they took everything bolted down, they are not going to be happy with the haul. They're going to be upset that they did not bring a bit and driver set so they can go ahead and unbolt whatever else is left. Right? And that is the Christian pastor. He gonna take that money, but he ain't gonna try to stop you from selling drugs. He needs you to keep selling drugs. He needs you to keep selling drugs so you keep bringing him your money. You stop selling drugs and you feel like you're getting on the right path, and you feel like you actually doing something with your life and it's pleasing to the Most High God. His money dries up. He knows that you know that what you're doing is wrong, but he will not stop you. He will not give you warning. He does not care. Right? He cares about his own. Which is why, T.D. Jakes said, he said, I'm paraphrasing, of course, not exact quote, but he said he was shutting down his church to make sure that the Potter's House family was going to be all right for COVID-19. Now, when he said the Potter's House family, he meant his family. He didn't care about your family. Because these are the leaders that the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have had to deal with and put up with because of one simple reason and one simple reason alone. And it was the first scripture that we read. Because we do not fear the Most High God. We do not walk in all his ways. Right? We do not follow his standards. And that is the reason our communities are no more, right? Our economy was destroyed. We went from Black Wall Street to buy black. Right? And that is sad. Well, what does that mean? From Black Wall Street to buy black is an extreme change in economic policy. See, during Black Wall Street, we traded with our own people. We bought and sold from and to our own people. We bought more, and then our people would get more things from the sale by buying something else from another one of our people who bought something else from another one of our people, and then our money stayed within us. Why? Because we were a holy people in that way. We were following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. Right? Now, I mean, we know, and everybody understands and knows, right? Sometimes in life, right, you fall. Sometimes in life you struggle. Sometimes, you know what I mean, in life, things seem too hard for you to be able to deal with. Right? And especially when it comes to things like, you know what I mean, finances, right? Being able to make money to eat, being able to, it's not even necessarily a whole situation about food, right? Because it seems to have slipped our minds somehow. But these are the curses of the Most High God. These are what the Most High God said would happen if we did not follow His laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? Actually, let's go ahead. We will say this one right here. Right? We will go ahead and move to the book of Deuteronomy. Right? And that is so I'll bear with me just one moment. Right? Trying to get this. Alright, bet. So, right. So, again, these are that's a punishment from the Most High God, right? And we have to understand that to break these punishments, the only way we can do that is by following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. All right? It's a lot. All right, so we're going to hop into the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. You know, I'm sure most people, if not all people listening to this, are very familiar with the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. Right? So we start at the 43rd verse. Right? And we'll make it on down probably to the 44th. Right? And it reads, the book of Deuteronomy, Slocky. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. See, these are not good things. All right, these are curses from the Most High God. Lock here. Alright. Let's see if we getting close to the time, so we're gonna go over these last couple scriptures real quick. And then we'll get to we'll make a part 2 where we get to the vocabulary words, you know what I'm saying, that go into describing and talking about aspects of a community, right? Because at the end of the day, right, a community is another word for a brotherhood, right? You cannot have a community without brotherhood or sisterhood. It's not a community in that case, right? And a brother, you know what I mean, will watch out and protect their own brother, even if, you know what I mean, the brother that was protected, you know, didn't like it. Right, he was a little upset by it, but what you did was you protected his life. Right, we're gonna go to the book of Leviticus, the 19th chapter, starting at verse 17, and it reads as follows: "Thou shalt not hate." The book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 17. "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him." Right? Verse 18. "Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, for thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh." Right? So what does this mean, right? Why did I go to the part where it says, "Do not hate your brother"? You know what I mean? In thine heart. Because we hold grudges and we hold things against our people for so long, right? They pretty much we're supposed to love each other, and that is the basis of a community, is that love, right? And I don't mean like an emotional type situation. We supposed to have fear for our God, and because we have that fear for our God, we are supposed to hold. We're supposed to look at our brothers and sisters and hold them to a higher standard, right? You don't treat, you know what I mean, a sister who's in here who's learning and taking back her culture and following the law, statutes, commandments of the Most High God, you can't treat her the same way you would treat a woman in the world, right? We have to understand that that there is a standard, and you don't get to just make up however you feel. You don't get to just do whatever you want to do because you feel that way, right? Let's see. All right. And another big problem in our in the so-called black neighborhood, right, is every dude that walk outside with a microphone think he a priest, and that is horrible, right? That is what our leaders have done to us. That is what the Christian church has done to us. Listen, the priests and prophets of the Most High God are in the ISUPK. If you hear anybody telling you that they are, or they're in the order or service to the Most High God, right? We have to understand that was something that's only given to Israel, right? And you can only do that by following the law, statutes, and commandments, right? So the Most High God is going to have a special place just for these so-called pastors, right, who do nothing but lead the sheep astray. Right? We need correct leadership and one governing body. Right? I think that's good. Right? Yeah, that's perfect. We're going to go to the book of Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 20, right? And it says, "And though the Lord give you bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall thy teachers," yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner anymore, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers, right? This is talking about how, you know what I mean, before 1969, you know what I mean, our people were only still doing exactly what they've been taught by our oppressor. But since 1969, you know what I mean, the Most High God has decided, you know, that our teachers would not be in the corner anymore, right? And the teachers that the Most High God has set up for us, the one body that the Most High God is even dealing with, is the ISUPK under Commander General Yohana, right? And that is something that we have to understand, and we all have to agree to for us to even have or be in a community. Scripture said, how can two walk together unless they agree? Now, when you want to go have your so-called unity camps and don't none of y'all agree on anything, you're not walking together. Or you don't have the same ways. You're not doing the same things. Y'all are not a community. Y'all, you're still two individuals. Right? Alright, and with that, I see we are pretty much at the time. So with that, again, I'm gonna come back, and we can go back and we're gonna go over all of these words, these vocabulary lists. You know what I'm saying, for different aspects and different things dealing with a community, right? When we have, it's like when we got enough time in the class to do so. So like, I believe that'll be should be next week. And so with that, Shalom, Israel.